episode 32 of Bleach second season. It can be said that this episode mostly follows the manga, meaning there weren't many additions like in previous episodes, though it did have several important points and hints that can't be overlooked. This episode, guys, can also be considered the end of one of the stages and the beginning of a new one. Most of the past episodes were set in the Royal Palace, especially focusing on battles such as Ichigo vs Yhwach, Squad Zero members against the 8 guards, and Ichigo's arrival, who also fought Yhwach and later clashed with Uryu. But in the Soul Society, the Shinigamis, especially those aware of the gravity of the situation, they knew that the real battle would be in the Royal Palace, therefore they needed to move to the battlefield, each one in their own way. Orohara, for example, coordinated efforts to create the gate that would send everyone to the Royal Palace by mobilizing several pieces, including Yurichi, the Vizards, and summoning Riruka and Yukio. Meanwhile, Kyoraku released Aizen to aid in defeating Yhwach, and Okichaki played a role in saving the worlds from destruction after Ichigo broke the King's Seal. All these preparations culminated in the transfer of the Goten 13 to the Royal Palace, along with the remaining Generator, while Aizen and Sasuke stayed behind in the Soul Society. I previously discussed this point in a video. For those who want more insights into why Aizen stayed and did not go with them, you can watch this video, guys. That's why, guys, from this point on, most battles and events will center around the Royal Palace. And this episode, guys, also witnessed perhaps the biggest gathering of all species in the story, united by one goal: stopping Yhwach. As I mentioned, even some of the Quincy's joined the Goten 13. We also saw the return of Grimijo and Nilil to the story. And I still remember Kobo's statement before the start of this arc as a manga, when he said that Nilil and Grimijo will return as Ichigo's allies, which has been true from the beginning, especially with Nil, who in her child form wanted Ichigo's help. Grimijo, on the other hand, played a direct role in defeating Kilgeopi, though his appearance was not clear until he appeared in the Royal Palace. And I see the return of Grimijo and Nilil as a gold chance to witness their own battles, especially since Orohara Kizuki now crafted a special device for Nil that allows her to maintain her adult form without going back to the child form. And another detail, guys, that caught my attention is that Nil still thinks about the logic of the numbers and ranks. She was Espada number 3, so when Grimijo arrived, she tried to remind him that she is stronger, as he's 6th Espada. But Grimijo's response was more realistic, pointing out that the numbers were only relevant during Aizen's era and no longer matter. Although I wish to see scenes of Grimijo and Nilil and Aizen talking to each other. I want to see their reactions. But as I said, and as Grimijo said, the numbers are no longer significant. The past Grimijo is not the present one. According to the novel, after his defeat by Ichigo, Grimijo devoted his time to training and strengthening himself, whereas Nil hadn't returned to her adult form after turning into a child until Orohara stepped in. And we can mention, guys, that there are now 2 Espadas with the same number, Harribel and Nil, with Grimijo present, and it seems they are now the last official Espada remaining in Wikomondo, not counting the Arrancar under Mayuri's control. Another point, guys, we know Grimijo is no longer Ichigo's enemy. However, even if he wanted to fight Ichigo for the sake of training or testing his strength, that's no longer possible. Grimijo, the Ichigo who fought you and defeated you in the past, only used a fraction of his power. How will it be now with his current level? And by the way, guys, I think the voice actor of Nil might have changed. The Nil I know didn't sound like that. I don't know, guys. And regardless of that, another thing I liked was the arrival of Riruka and Yukio. Riruka's command carried a lot of weight. Orohara Kizuki possesses information on all characters with special abilities in Karakura Town, and possibly beyond that. It seems that he has tools that allow him to track Fullbring's locations. Thus, he was able to summon them through Yurichi and utilize their abilities to transport everyone to the palace location. And this confirms, guys, something we already knew, but it's nice to see it in the anime. In the manga, when Ichigo spoke with Riruka, he told her that he had been in the Valley of Screams before. Kubo, in the chapter before that, when Yurichi was explaining how the Valley of Screams was formed, Kubo made this sketch, where he said that for more information, readers should watch the first movie. And now the studio guys has affirmed through this informational panel that Ichigo previously visited the Valley of Screams during the Chininju incident. We all know that the Chininju refers to Sena. So for those who haven't watched the first movie, I recommend it as it contains valuable information on the subject. I also like the scene where many characters gathered in one place, when the threat is greatest and internal conflicts fade. We have 4 humans with full-bring powers, Ryuka, Yukio, Chad and Orihime, and there are 2 nobles, Yurichi from the Shuhin family and Ganjo from the Minshiba branch. We also have 2 Arrancar, Grimijo and Neil. In the midst of them, Ichigo embodies all these powers together, showcasing his unique nature. And another detail guys that we can see in this episode was the extent of Ryu's power. We saw a brief glimpse of what Ryu was capable of, splitting the old world and reshaping new ones. Because guys, we should remember that Ryu created the 3 worlds using a pre-existing world as a foundation. And I find Yhwach's new power derived from Ryu to be somewhat similar. He used his power to reshape the 5 cities in the Royal Palace and exerted full control over the reach level throughout the palace, complicating battles from the other Shinigamis. And Ryu's new power guys reinforces a statement made by Hirschfeld in the manga. Hirschfeld said that without Ryu's power the world would collapse. However, with Yhwach's power present, this collapse didn't occur. And this guy demonstrates that sealing Ryu was not essential, but was a plan from the nobles to contain his power and prevent rebellion against the Shinigamis in the future. And the proof is evident. Yhwach was working freely without a seal, and the worlds remained stable. And this guys leads to something very bad that Kyoraku said here. When Kyoraku reached the Royal Palace, one of his concerns was ensuring Ichigo's safety. He then told the others that it didn't matter if Ryu died. As long as they're gonna defeat their enemies, they can make a new king. So what do you think this new king would be? It's undoubtedly Ichigo, who proved during his test with Ichibi that he could be the new king or the new vassal for Ryu, and would be sealed. However guys, as we have seen, Yhwach didn't need a seal to keep the worlds stable. Another thing guys that caught my attention was Uryu's expression in this episode. He seemed more sorrowful or tense than before, perhaps due to Ichigo's situation or facing Yhwach's new power, which he witnessed and saw his terror, the power of the new king. And I believe Uryu at this moment started to realize that things were becoming more challenging regarding his plans. And this episode guys also included a reference to Ukitake in his great power, especially his Ryatsu. If he hadn't used it on Mimihage, they could have activated the gate without any issues, and this gives us guys insight into Ukitake's true strength. Unfortunately, illness prevented us from seeing his true power. As I said, this episode sets the stage for a new phase or new stages of events, the Royal Palace battles, so I'm really excited for the next episode and the next battles. In the end guys, tell me what you think about this episode, your opinions, and see you guys in my next video.